Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. And remember, if you find yourself sitting on a comma in your life, you can also talk to me without a microphone. To explore coaching with me and getting off the comma in your own life, check out my information and book a call with me at offthecomma.com. And I'm also doing something different. I'm curating my own sponsor community, local businesses and professionals who I handpick and who align with our vision here. Be sure to check them out, learn more about them on my website and my YouTube channel. In the meantime, let's get into this week's conversation. And we're back with another episode of Off the Comma, and very excited to be here as we start the new year, which is where we're at with this episode, or where we should be by the time this episode airs. So very excited to have a new guest with us this week to share his story and to talk to us about his experience with being stuck and getting unstuck. And it's another guest, as it has been now for a number of weeks, who we haven't met before. This is someone who's new to my circle. We haven't had a chance to meet, so I'm very much looking forward to getting to know him in our conversation today, and to hear about his experience and to help bring his story to all of you as well. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to shut up and actually hand it over to Jaymes Buckman. So Jaymes, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. And as we get started getting to know you, why don't you tell us, how would you like to be known? And then anything else that you would like for us to know about you before we actually get into your story.
To start with, I am and always shall be Jaymes Buckman, the weird, queer, neurodivergent, sparkly poet god frontman of Hot Apollo, the sparkliest rock band in the galaxy.
Nice. A lot of very colorful words to describe yourself. And already I can see the energy coming through. Obviously, folks won't be able to see you. We're doing audio only, but I can actually, I could just see the type of energy that you're bringing into the story today. So it's very exciting. Cool. What else, before we get into your story, what else would be important for folks to know about you?
I guess if it's relevant, I'm based in Toronto, the unofficial capital of Canada. Since I guess you're not seeing this visually, I have spectacular blue hair.
Nice. And you do. And it's a pleasure to meet you. So, Jaymes, in a minute, we're going to get into the 5 questions and we're going to talk through kind of your experience with sitting on a comma. But before we get into your story, one of the things that I like to do with all of my guests is to start with your intention. And as you think ahead to the time ahead that we're going to have together, 30, 40 minutes or so, what would be your intention for yourself today in telling your story?
I kind of always tend towards almost too much openness. I'm very I never feel the need to hide much, and honestly, when it comes to stuff like mental health and things of that nature, I kind of think it is good to share that kind of thing, because it reminds people that this stuff is not some like moral failing or anything. It is stuff that happens quite a lot, and there are other people, and it's something that it can happen to anyone, but it's also something that anyone can get through, you know. I think having more stories out there to remind people of that is generally to the good.
Hmm. Nice. Particularly, I what resonates with me is that anyone can get through, this kind of this element of hope and optimism there too. And I can certainly relate to that. I appreciate that. My intention today is to support you in your intention, create a container for you to be able to share your story and accomplish your intention. And that hopefully out there will be people who will hear your story, see a little bit of themselves in you and your story, and that it will help them feel more connected, a little less alone, and in the best of cases, maybe feel even a little bit more inspired and empowered to do something that they've been wanting to do for themselves.
I support that entirely.
Nice. Okay. All right, Jaymes, let's get into the questions. First question is, where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
Um, the most there've been a few times, but the biggest one and the one that I think has impacted me the most would have to be a few years ago when a kind of bunch of seemingly innocuous bad habits and you know lacked in the way I kind of paid attention to things really kind of caught up with me, and it precipitated uh, a complete change in how I lived my life and how I looked at things, and it's kind of resulted in the greatest change and set me on the path to becoming the best version of myself. And if you told me that, I don't know, uh, like 5 years before that, I would have like been startled and terrified. But now I'm like the happiest I've ever been, and
Mhm.
in a way that would have been unthinkable to me, you know, uh, even like not too long before that.
Mm. Tell us more about these things. Like as you were sitting in this stuck place or sitting on this comma with these bad habits as you described. So what was going on at the time? What was feeling stuck? What was keeping you in this place?
Well, that's almost the scary thing. I didn't like feel that stuff for most of the time leading up to it. But I mean, if I can give a bit of background, I kind of have this thing where it might be like a bit of the way like my autism manifests, but for whatever reason, for like my entire life, I've never really been able to hear, much less interpret, like my body's signals that well.
Mm.
So like I never like feel tired, for instance, and I don't feel like hungry or full. And so because of that, I forget to do things like eat and sleep. Um, and for like even growing up, like it wasn't that bad when I was in grade school because your parents wake you up to go to school, they give you breakfast, you get lunch at school, you come home, they give you dinner, send you to bed, right? But kind of after that, like once I got kind of out of high school, and I didn't have people watching over me all the time, that stuff just like kind of totally fell by the wayside. And the first thing I noticed and kind of tried to ignore was while I didn't like necessarily like feel the need to sleep that much, when I didn't, I would start to get seizures, and those got increasingly worse. And
Mm.
they started to really like tear up my body, which was already kind of I didn't know it at the time, but it was already kind of vulnerable because I wasn't eating nearly enough. And without realizing it, I got kind of emaciated, and seizures can like really do a number on the body. And when your body's already fragile, it can be even worse. Like there was one time where I had a seizure that like I felt fine the day after, and like went for a like went for a little like run just to like I have a lot of energy, so I at the time that was how I dealt with it. I didn't have much else to do, so I just went for a run, came back, and then like the next day I could like barely walk, and that persisted for
Mm.
like months. I think yeah, at least like a month and a half or something before I could like like kind of walk or even run normally again. And it's kind of just like, and these all these things at the time seemed like isolated incidents, and like I was living my life and happy, and like the my band was like really starting to come together. And so yeah, I felt pretty happy at the time. I thought this things are going pretty well. But then those seemingly isolated incidents started to like cluster up, and there was like less time between them. And then there was this one it was like right I love spring and summer. Like I'm someone who gets cold really easily. Like if it's below, okay, I know you're a guest in America, so I don't know Fahrenheit that well, but Celsius, like below, like 18 degrees, I start to get chilly. And yeah, but like I never overheat. So like I'm all about spring and summer, and like spring is just like such a wonderful time of renewal, and I can finally take my like winter jacket off and just glory in the rebirth of the world, And right around that time, my legs started to stop working again, and it was really distressing, and I couldn't be free. I was like, I was looking everywhere for answers. I couldn't figure it out. Like at first I thought, well, am I wearing the wrong shoes? And I went to all these like, doctors and like walking clinics, and I don't know. Sometimes they're not that helpful. Sometimes they just kind of want to get you out of their office. They're like, well, maybe you're not moving around enough. So I
Hmm.
thought, well, I mean, I run pretty often. Like, should I do even more running? And that just made it worse. Um, and eventually, I found one guy who said, "Yeah, okay, I can clearly see the problem. You have like almost no muscle mass, and your body cannot support the level of activity you're doing." And that scared me for a number of reasons. I mean, they're pretty obvious ones, but also like I'm a rock and roll singer, and like so much of that for me at least is getting out in front of the stage and jumping around like an insane monkey. And I never want to have to stop doing that. Like for my entire life, at the very least, I want to keep doing that. It's very important to me. So that really like shocked me. And he said, okay, you need to see a dietitian, you need to see a trainer, maybe ease up on the running and lift some weights instead. And so I had like no idea where to start, but I gave it a shot. My mother actually recommended this kind of uh, personal training clinic that also had a lot of kind of holistic, expertise too. And so I started going there, and it was a lot of it was like really scary for me at first because I had to learn a fair bit, like pretty fast, to just get started. And I remember at the time my trainer was like, I kept asking, "Is there anything else I should know?" And he was like really evasive, and he later told me, "Yeah, there was a lot else you had to know, but I didn't want to like just like shock you into a coma right off the bat because I knew like despite what you said, you'd have to take a bit of time to like develop these habits, and I wanted them to stick with you, and I didn't want you to get like scared off." Which I feel as though I might have made it through, but it probably would have been far harder. But yeah, so I had a great support that kind of guide me through that, and yeah, and I feel like so much better than I ever have, and I feel more confident than ever that I'll be. I look at people like when Jagger and Iggy Pop, and they are doing at least as well, on stage as they were when they were like 25, and that stuff is so inspiring to me. I want to be up there with those guys, and yeah, and I kind of you know got right under the wire to save myself from not being able to. And also it's on I didn't expect this, but it has helped with like my mental health so much too. I people talk about like
Hmm.
kind of like mind body balance, and I've never really considered it before until I personally experienced it. And I've had lifelong mental health issues like OCD, anxiety, um, autism, and it's just like having a kind of a physical body that's more in tune has helped me to manage all the stuff, all the like craziness in my head too. It doesn't make it disappear and like nothing could, but it just makes it so much smoother when I have to deal with it.
Hmm. If I may, let me kind of jump in. I want to acknowledge you and reflect some of the things. So first of all, just acknowledging you for all the things that you've shared with us so far and all of the things that are uniquely a part of the thumbprint that is you or the fingerprint that is you in your life and your life experience. So thank you for sharing these things with us. And for some of us who may not be as knowledgeable or familiar or as exposed to some of the things that make you who you are, it helps us learn more about folks like yourself. And also reflecting like through this journey as you described, like there was very much this mind body connection that I see, and you correct me where I'm wrong. Like the mind body connection is sort of what revealed the challenge for you because the mind initially was what was keeping the body from getting what it needed, nourishment, food, exercise, etc. And yet once you were able to recognize that and then take the steps that you needed to be able to start to improve your physical condition, then you tell us about how your physical condition then worked again to support your mental health and your mental capacity. And so in your story, I'm just hearing how important having both kind of in alignment and both being supported and nurtured is important because they'll support each other.
Very much so, yeah. In fact, I kind of I I feel as though I've like learned a lot of great lessons from both my parents. Um, and a lot of that is very positive, but some of it is like what not to do. And but and yeah, so a small percentage of it is what not to do. But that stuff is also very important. Like my father was like, well, both my parents were like incredible geniuses. Like doctors topped their field, and my father in particular was like very much a polymath. Um, but until like his last decade of life, I guess he told me when he was like kind of like in high school, he took a bit of pride in his ability to like ride a tandem bicycle by himself. But for most of his adult life, he like completely neglected his body, and that like really had some effects on him. And in the last like 5 to 10 years of his life, he like started taking better care of himself. But like I remember that now and how I don't want to have to deal with what he did.
Mhm.
And and I just think anyone if you can like, so much of my life I thought I'll just focus on my strengths and just kind of forget about my weaknesses. And now I'm thinking, okay, I feel very confident in my strengths, but uh, the way to challenge myself and make myself a more complete person is to do as much as do like to try to at least get to like mediocre in like weakest spots. You know what I mean? So I try to
Mm,
do all the stuff I'm like naturally very bad at and see where it takes me. And it surprises me
mm.
sometimes. But it's a lot of fun too.
I so appreciate that. And what I'm hearing you say is you didn't say, "Oh, I've got to fix all my weaknesses or I've got to turn them all into strengths." You said there's opportunity in the strengths that I focused on and these weaknesses. If I can develop them to any degree or capacity, it helps me, and it's fun because it's exploration, it's learning.
Yeah. Like right now, like one of my things is like I never had any designs on being, like a martial arts competitor or anything, but like I'm taking kung fu classes right now and I'm not like, the best learner, but it's a really great environment and it's like, teaching me how to use my body in ways I hadn't before, which is a lot of fun for me because I do like using my body for all sorts of things. And so when I see a new avenue for that, it's cool. And it's very uh you know it's very like awkward process for me, but it's still really fulfilling.
What I'd love to dig a little deeper there because this feels like some of the things that people can really take from it and personalize. When you say it's fulfilling, what are you getting, or what's the most exciting thing that you're getting out of pushing into these challenges?
I mean, as I said, it's just like it's like utilizing like my physical form in like ways I hadn't thought to before.
Mm,
And even thinking about the way different parts of my body move in relation to each other. And I'd never considered it before because as I said, I'm not like naturally that in tune with my body. I love being in it. I love using it, but like it's sort of I guess it's almost like kind of the difference between like uh driving a like sports car and like riding a stallion, It's like when you're riding when you're like horseback riding, you really have to like know exactly what the horse is thinking in order for it to understand what you're thinking too.
mm,
Whereas, when you're in a Ferrari, you just like slam on the gas and, go. And that's kind of how I'd always use my body before. It just, it did most of what I told it to do and cool, fun. But now I'm really having like, it's teaching me more how to like steer it and work with it instead of just like powering through.
I'm hearing this. I'm hearing a couple of things. Like one thing that I believe I'm hearing you say is that in a way, this disconnection from your body creates an opportunity for you to continue to be surprised when you connect with it in the ways that you do. So there's that element of like always discovering something and sort of being surprised and excited by the things that you see that it's capable of and your connection is capable of. And I'm also hearing you talk about this. I've always kind of pushed full bore, and now I get to explore all the nuances, not only of what my body can do, but how I feel in my body. I mean, these are just my interpretations. You tell me, what are your thoughts?
That's pretty accurate on the whole, I would say.
Mm, nice. So I'm definitely hearing in your story that a big part of this is really sort of rediscovering your body, discovering your body, your capabilities physically, and then these positive impacts that it has then on your mental capability, cognition, experience, and so forth. I'd love to ask the second question, which is, as you look back at this comma that you sat on and what you've described to us so far, what did that create for you?
Um, okay, well, I will say this. I think the most like far-reaching effect, or at least one of them, would be that the ways in which I had to change the way I lived my life and the ways I thought about things, in to a degree that I had never thought possible before. Like right before, if you had told me what I was going to have to do, I would have completely bombed. But being able to do that, and the relative ease with which I got through it, there was a lot of stumbling, but I did do it and I stuck with it. Um, and the like overall positive effect it had on me and my life, that made me think. Uh, there really isn't anything I uh I could adapt to and fix and change and overcome if I needed to. And admittedly, if I had the right support, which I did for this, and that was extremely important. I couldn't have done like any of this alone. So I think it is paramount that if you're approaching really any obstacle or severe alteration, it's good to have a network around you of people you can trust. And I know that can be a bit of luxury and hard to find, but it is worth it. And so yeah, when I did this, it made me think, okay, um, there really isn't anything that's gonna like by necessity hold me back. Like
Mm,
some things might be harder or trickier or like require different sacrifices or whatever. But if it's worth it to me, and I kind of know when things are worth it to me, I'll make it happen.
mm. So I'm hearing a couple of things there, like the importance of, as you've been proving to us, like I can do hard things, I can do difficult things, but they don't have to be easy in order to be worthwhile. And they don't have to be easy in order for me to be able to accomplish them. And so just this proof of capability, evidence of what you can accomplish. And then also, like, you had gone from describing having a family who kind of saw to your needs and seeing to you're taking care of yourself, to now that you're independent, you found new folks to support you in new ways, and you were just acknowledging them, like how important the people around you are to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I will say my family is still like very supportive, even when they like don't understand everything. But I mean, I
Sure.
know the health stuff was something like my mom in particular had been on me for most of my life, and I kind of just when went in one ear and out the other because it just sounded like typical mom stuff to me, and that was definitely my failing. So she was like happier than anyone to see that I was finally making it work.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about, and I'm glad you clarified that, right? Like, not to imply that your family went away, but their role changed, right? Because while you were living with them in school, they kind of took the lead on it, and then now that you are living independently, they're still there supporting, but you found new people to take those lead roles. Which of the people, in this new community that you've built to support you in these new goals, which of these folks had the biggest impact on you, and why?
Um, I don't know. I'm not actually that great at like quantifying things. But I will say like okay. So as I said, I'm still I am like almost like congenitally incapable of like really tuning into my body signals and knowing exactly what they mean. So a lot of this
Mhm.
stuff I can't do intuitively. A lot of this stuff I kind of have to do according to like a pretty like concrete plan. So like
Mhm.
having like for instance a dietitian, personal trainer, or whatever I work with to tell me exactly what I need to eat, what nutrients I need, all that stuff. Like I can like having that stuff like kind of laid out for me with all the learning he had behind it, which would take me like a lifetime to like fully grasp, was really important. Like having the way my mind works, if I have like instructions to follow, I can stick with it. So that was really important. That like really kind of you know saved me from like uh what I was on the verge of succumbing to.
Mm. that acknowledgement of that
Yeah.
person is important.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead. I
Oh
don't want
yeah,
to
and
cut you
then
off.
yeah, I mean that was like, that kind of got the whole thing in motion. I would say that, and yeah,
Mm.
knowing what weights to lift in the gym and stuff like that.
But you know what I think is also cool about this too, because your whole story that you're sharing with us is about accomplishment and capability, and like it also reinforces the fact that you don't even folks who aren't working with the same set of circumstances that you are, like you don't have to figure it out and do it at the same time, right? Like you can lean on others in your support system to help guide you. You know, you gave a very specific example of like I'm not going to figure these things out on my own, but if you give me a plan and you give me instructions, I will execute on that. And I think that holds true for so many of us, right? Like speaking for myself, how much time I sometimes I'll say waste on trying to figure out the how to instead of leaning on my resources to say, tell me how to, and then putting the effort and energy into that mental effort that it takes to follow the steps and do the things and complete the instructions, right? So like you don't have to figure it out on your own. You can invest your energy in the actual doing of it, the execution. Is that a fair thing to
That's
say?
yeah, and that's something I kind of like try to bring into the rest of my life too. Um, like I mean, even my band, like I really love the roster of my band right now because even outside of the fact that every single person in the band is like incredible at their instrument, they also bring different skills that really complement each other so wonderfully. And I kind of I think that's what it takes to build a band or a team like that can function and actually get somewhere. And so that yeah, stuff like that is so important. Like knowing like everyone should be able to kind of like work with everyone else, but also when people bring like their unique strengths to the table, it's so beneficial.
That's really such a meaningful thing to say, right? Like people can bring their expertise, people can be specialists, but yet we also all need to have some general skills in terms of how we relate to each other and act as a community and that sort of thing. Like that's powerful in terms of all of the places that can apply to, as you just talked about. Nice. Jaymes, let me ask the third question. As you look back at this experience, this comma that you were sitting on, what did you learn about yourself?
I guess the dangers of complacency. That would be a pretty big one. And like apart from the things I've talked about so far, I think uh,
Mm.
when I'm over the course of my life, very much less so now, but for a lot of like the early stages of my life, um, I did kind of tend to vacillate between, or not even vacillate. It was kind of like sometimes both at once, but just like very high insecurity, and a level of pride that could at times verge on arrogance. Because like I know my strengths, I know what I'm good at, and I know I'm like essentially supreme in those ways. Um, and like when I kind of again focusing on strengths to the exclusion of weaknesses, when all you're like thinking about is how good you are at that stuff, it can raise your self esteem, which is not like inherently unhealthy, but if it kind of prevents you from seeing where you might have flaws, or just thinking, well, I'm too good, so that cancels out my flaws, basically. That's a very dangerous position to be in, and that causes a lot of problems. Fortunately for me, it mainly just caused problems for myself, but I would not want to repeat those either. So I think after like really fully facing uh, the uh, the damage that I can do to myself just by not um, being vigilant, not like constantly striving to improve, I I stuck with that, and it doesn't mean like I can feel good about myself and still always know that there's room to grow further, because I don't kind of believe in perfection as a thing that literally exists in the universe. It's sort of an always unreachable goal, and you become uh, the best version of yourself
Mm.
by continuing on the path towards it. I think that's kind of the apex of achievement, just to keep going. And even if you feel like mastery in one area of your life or whatever, that's totally cool. But
Mm.
it just means that you can expand elsewhere.
I, I'm literally, I'm taking notes obviously for the show notes and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, Paul, you're taking notes for yourself too, because I think there's such an important message there, right? Like what you said about, focusing only on mastery can be so limiting. And that when we do focus on areas of opportunity, like you didn't use these words, but I think what I'm personally taking is I don't have to attach judgment to that. And judgment can sometimes be the, oh, I'm not good at that. Or why didn't I think about exploring that before? Or, all that stuff that comes with it. But like, just do the thing. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to be great at it. You don't end up having to call it a strength, but there's things to be learned and discovered in there. And that's exactly what you were saying earlier in your story
Yeah.
too.
And also, here's the thing. This is like a bunch of these lessons are things I've learned like in discrete ways, like numerous times over the course of my life. But until like that sort of epiphany a few years ago, I didn't realize how they applied everywhere. I just had to keep learning them. Okay, in this field, I shouldn't, in this specific area, I should learn this lesson. Cool, learn it, not forgetting it. But then I'd have to learn it again somewhere else. And I just realized, no, this is all this stuff you're learning is like applies across the board. You know, like one example is like
Yeah.
when I first got into music in high school, my two main talents were like poetry and songwriting and stage presence. And I thought, well, I'm so good at writing what I'm singing, and I'm so good at delivering it on stage. I have amazing stage presence and energy. I'm the perfect frontman. I don't need to be a good singer. So I just, a very like, kind of punk rock attitude or whatever, which I guess a lot of punk bands haven't started kind of along those lines. But quickly realized, okay, I can be good at those two things, but also I have the time, I have the means, I have the motivation to. Well, I had to, realize I had the motivation to improve my voice too. And now my voice is, I'm not singing opera or anything, but it's pretty good for what it is, and and I'm still have room to grow there too. And yeah, and so yeah, and I should have kind of realized at the time, yeah, that applies everywhere. But it wasn't until a few years ago where I realized, yeah, it does stuff like that. Um, just because yeah, there's always you can always find ways to grow.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the like it's little ways, it's little places, it's all over. It's not just the one thing. It can be like you can put all your energy into I want to improve at this one thing, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. And it also doesn't have to like they don't all have to have some kind of magic alignment and meaning. They'll all come together. Nice. Jaymes, as you look back at the comma that you've been talking to us about, and I feel like you've already answered this question a little bit, but what else would you add? The question is, what has changed for you as a result of sitting on this comma? Or what is continuing to change for you?
Uh I mean, kind of everything, almost everything. Yeah, I mean, my goals haven't changed, but I feel more empowered to reach them and even broaden them in some cases than I ever have before. And I I will say, just hmm, if I can maybe delve with like one little personal thing, um, briefly that kind of I feel this set me up for. Uh, I've been a lifelong romantic, but my dating history for most of my life has been like pretty spotty. And finally this summer, I found the love of my life, and occasionally, we joke that it took us this long to meet each other when we were clearly like destined for each other. But if I'm like being completely honest, if we'd met, even a kind of a bit earlier, I'm not saying it would have been an abject failure, but it would have been far harder to make the relationship work than it would have been before I learned all these lessons and how to really kind of like step outside of myself and look at what I could be doing wrong or what I could do better, um, without having to like be like shocked into that realization. And it kind of made me a little better at kind of like almost learning preemptively, or at least
Hmm.
like more smoothly. And I think stuff like that is so important to making any kind of interpersonal dynamic work, especially in a romantic relationship. And so that really prepped me and kind of made me, I guess, um, uh, you know, a much better partner than I would have been otherwise.
You said the word that I was thinking, was it sounds like you were kind of being prepared, in order for this to even become possible. And like you said, if this romance had come any sooner, at what level would you have been prepared? How would you have been able to receive it and go into it? So that sounds like, all this work that you've been doing and all of this personal discovery has really kind of paid off in an entirely different arena.
Yeah, it's very Karate Kid. You're like washing the car and then suddenly you realize, oh, this is the same way I do a. I've never actually seen the Karate Kid, but I kind of that's what I took from it, from just kind
Okay.
of pop cultural osmosis. The thing he washes the car and it's the same
The
movement he
wax
uses in the
on,
martial
wax
arts. Yeah,
off.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it
I've
applies
forgotten what it meant, but
in karate too. Yeah, I think that's what the point was. The way you're training yourself in one way, you can apply that training elsewhere without
yeah.
even knowing it.
Yeah. Don't underestimate the value of the experience or the learning, because I've said this to myself before. Sometimes it's like, oh, the very thing that I'm trying to find meaning in, or like maybe there's a reason or a purpose. Sometimes the meaning and the purpose may be related to something that you have no idea what it is yet, and something entirely different, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. What would you say? I'd love to stay on the relationship for a moment. So as you've entered this relationship, you've entered it with a whole different set of skills and experiences that you have described as being you're more prepared for it and you're able to take more from the relationship. What would you say is the most significant impact that the relationship is now having on you?
Um, it's kind of it's hard to really know where to start because it kind of is all encompassing. Like since like I kind of I've like true love has been something like on my mind since I was like probably 6 or 7 years old, you know, and it was like so elusive for all this time, and yeah, no, finally finding it is it's kind of like honestly it's this it's an achievement of like one of my two lifelong dreams. It's this one and you know, uh massive artistic success,
Hmm.
So I'm like I've achieved half my goals already, and that's like, if I die in a week and the world does not know the name of my band Hot Apollo, I still will feel pretty happy just to have found love, you know. Um, so it kind of feels like I have one life.
Hmm.
Honestly, I know that it's a really kind of twee thing to say, but that is how it feels. Um, and honestly, I will say I would feel like that even if
Hmm.
all I had found was this love. But the fact is, my boyfriend Tobias, I didn't realize all this initially, but he is actually, you talk about support systems, and he is good at and possessing so much knowledge of so much stuff that I can learn from. It has improved my life even outside of the emotional sector. He's like he's been able to give me advice on stuff that's he's okay. For instance, my band had a show last Friday, and I don't know if this goes out, but last Friday when I'm talking, and you know uh the thing I've been my drummer, excellent person, great at so much stuff, but he's not the greatest at dressing like a rock star on stage. I really have to kind of remind him to kind of glam it up sometimes, and it's hard to know exactly what works both for the band's image and for him. Whereas my boyfriend Toby exactly saw what he needed and actually made him a stage outfit, like right before, like he finished it right as Jamie the drummer was taking the stage. Stuff like
Hmm.
that, like just create like different people, different skill sets, and
Hmm.
I'm so lucky to be um with someone who possesses so many relevant skill sets, which is crazy. Yeah.
I love that because I love it. First of all, any love story I love, and it sounds like one of the things I'm hearing is he
Yeah.
he fills in some of the missing parts. right? Like you said, he saw something that none of the rest of us did or hadn't quite figured out. So there's this like element of like, oh, he fills in some of these missing parts. And then also, Jaymes, I'd love for you to tell me if I'm on track here, but this relationship and how you're going into it and what you're getting from it, the experience seems very similar to the way you described when you started to rediscover your body. Like there was the, I'm not really connected to it, so anything that I'm able to do with it is a little bit of a surprise, a pleasant surprise. It's the learning how to feel the body, and some of the things that you shared earlier and that I was reflecting, this relationship seems like another version of that. Like there's all this pleasant surprise that's coming out of it for you because it's showing you new parts of yourself and new things that you're capable of, and then the nuance that comes along with it. Is that a fair thing to say?
I would say so. And the other similarity I would draw is that in both cases, there was, my anxiety always was starting out, at least, especially, um you know yelling at me from the back, saying like, this is scary, this is unlike anything we've done before. What if the worst happens? Like, we don't even know what the worst is, but anxiety doesn't need concrete details, it just needs fear. Just that you can just like make like formless fear inside your mind. But at the front of my mind, I was thinking, I have faith in this, it's going to work out. And it's kind of lent into the faith and brushed by the anxiety, which is something I've kind of trained my whole life to do. So in both cases, that's kind of how I approached it. It was like new and like, frightening in different ways. And like, it's, if it goes wrong, it could be disastrous, but I kind of had faith that it would not go wrong and that it would take me where I need to go.
Mm. So a lot of determination in there, faith, trust, moving forward, pushing into the uncomfortable things like that just keeps showing up over and over again in your story.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring to me at the very least here. It's just the two of us right now. But Jaymes, the last question is kind of like in general, what does getting off the comma look like to you?
The freedom to achieve my goals and live the way I want to.
Mm. Mm. Say more about that. Freedom. This is a strong word.
I mean, it's the opposite of being stuck, right? When you're like mired in whatever you're going through, everything, every step you try to take is just like weighed down by all this like metaphysical muck. And when you can figure out a way to free yourself of that, uh, you know, and in most cases have people to help for you, um, it you rise above that, and now you have the ability to soar towards your own like personal horizon.
Hmm. It's almost like, it seems to me almost like, we're, any of us who lives in a free country, we're always free to do things, but what you're describing is the freedom from the limiting beliefs, or the freedom from those voices that want to hold us back, the freedom from the self-imposed restrictions.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Jaymes, we're about to wrap up. And so you have shared so much with us today. And I so appreciate, the vulnerability and the trust in all of us and being able to share your experience and your story with us. As we look ahead and folks are interested in learning more about you, maybe connecting with you, reaching out to you, I'll put all your contact information in the show notes. Tell us, where can folks find you? Where can folks look you up?
I'm very easy to find because my social media handle and everything everywhere is always the same. It's always the name of my band, Hot Apollo. That's because I don't have the bandwidth in my head to like maintain personal and band accounts for every single thing. And no one else in my band uses social media basically. So yeah, look at search Hot Apollo, HOTAPOLLO, anywhere, and you will find me. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Ben's on Spotify and Apple and every other place you listen to music. But yeah, that's
Okay.
the way to find me. And if you're looking to get into some cool new like glam rock, we have a bunch of stuff already out, and we are in the process of recording our third album. which should be out around the beginning of 2025, if I had
Okay.
to kind of guess. But the first music video for it should be out in probably it's already out by the time you hear this, if I'm at all on my mark.
Okay, nice. Lots to explore, and definitely encourage folks to jump in there into the show notes and click on these links to check out Jaymes. Jaymes, last thing before we close is something I do with every guest. You've showed up today and shared your story with us, and that supports what this podcast is all about, which is hearing the stories of everyday people that are like us so that we can kind of relate to and from each other and take what we need from each other without being told how to live our lives, right? And so your story wouldn't be complete if we don't allow you to lift up the voices of folks who are close to you. So I call this last section acknowledgements, and it's an opportunity for you to give a voice to or boost or promote folks who matter to you. And that can be causes, organizations, people in your life, other creators, just whoever you want it to be. Who would you like to acknowledge as we close out this episode and your story?
Okay, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is as I said, I played a show on Friday, and the band that came on after us was called Wiener Kebab, and they did some things I have never seen or heard live before, and like I've never heard stuff like a band play like a legitimate swing song in a show I've been at before, and that was so cool. And they dubbed in like so many different genres and like hit them all so well, and yeah, I'm excited to see where they go because I'd never heard of them before that night. In fact, I saw the name on the poster, and I thought it'd be funny to actually buy a hot dog from Circle K and kebab it and show up with that on stage. So I did that. But then yeah, they come and said yeah, it was just bring a wiener kebab anyway.
Okay, so
joke,
just to jump in, so like
yes,
it's literally what you said, right? It's wiener as in hot dog wiener, and
yeah,
kebab as in kebab, sheikh
yeah,
kebab, et
yeah.
cetera. Okay,
I like
cool,
to make the dumb jokes sometimes, but yeah, yeah, wiener
nice,
kebab. So yeah, if you've already listened to all the stuff by Hot Apollo 10 times over and you need a break, I wouldn't, but to each their own. Look up wiener kebab because they do some crazy stuff, and yeah, I'm honestly I'm
cool,
excited to play with them again already.
cool. Who else would you acknowledge? I think you had talked about your band members and your mom.
Yeah, so my mom, Patricia Shaw, still like just on the verge of retiring from being on top of her field in cancer pathology. Um, and we'll see how long that lasts because she feels like that she really does like excel at work and she loves excelling at stuff. So, but yeah, right now she's hanging with her sister in Prince Edward Island and finally taking an extended vacation after decades of like just the most diligent work. My band, Jamie on drums, Charlo and Dan on guitar, and Julian on bass, and my boyfriend and partner in increasingly more things, Tobias. Yeah, those are the most important people in my life, and I'm so thankful to have all of them with me.
Nice. Well, thank you for lifting them up. These are folks and groups who are very important to you, and I know they'll appreciate the shout out. I encourage everybody here to go and check out any links for these acknowledgments that are in the show notes. And I want to wrap by saying again, thank you, Jaymes, for sharing your story with all of us. And I have personally taken things away from it that I am going to spend a little time with and work on. And you've inspired me. And just grateful to have you here. Wish you the best of the rest of your week and look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Very same to you.
Have a great week.
I shall.
What an honor it is for me to witness these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way too. Think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? What inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. Surprises can reveal themselves to you when you do this. And if you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. Let's spread the word. Let's continue to build connection. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode, follow the podcast here on this platform and social media at Off the Comma, and feel free to comment and interact with these posts and episodes. Check out my website for workshops, events, and my sponsor community. I'm covering the costs of production by curating my own sponsors who align with our vision. Be sure to check them out. They're all powerful people and businesses. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.